The getfixedboi seed, a brutal, hellish, and heinous seed, often referred to as the everything seed, and the zenith seed. It is truly one of Terraria's hardest challenges to conquer. So what if I used only components of the zenith sword used in its long crafting tree on the zenith seed itself, with the challenge only concluding once the zenith is crafted? Is it even possible? Well, luckily for me, I actually start off with one of the ingredients for the zenith, the copper short sword. The first weapon on any Terrarian's journey. Not very good, but at least it's something. So first of all, on this seed, you do actually have hunger. So my first course of action was to actually shake some ash trees to hopefully get some pomegranates or spicy peppers. Now, there were lava slimes jumping me, which was quite annoying. Now, something else you get from shaking trees is surprisingly a lot of rope. So that means that I can just start going straight up, which brings me to my first obstacle, crispy honey block. The problem with crispy honey block in this seed is it makes you burn and it drops lava when you break it. So I have to be very particular where I go. This takes absolutely forever. I'm running through my food, but eventually I do get to the snow biome. Now, this isn't as bad. I can tunnel up much easier, but my first death is actually from the dark. That's right, in this seed, you die in the dark as well. So you might be wondering what my first course of action is. Now, there are a couple things that I could do. First option would be the blade of grass, as that is used in the knight's edge, which is used in the true knight's edge, which is used in the terra blade, which is used in the zenith. But going and collecting some stingers and vines just seems very unfeasible right now with the copper short sword. I could get a Star Fury from a Sky Island chest, but in this seed, the Sky Island chests are locked behind a gold key. Another early game weapon I can get is the enchanted sword, but I'd have to find that. Who knows where that would be? So therefore, my only real option is either the Light's Bane or the Blood Butcherer. So that's the plan, but right now, I'm just kind of gearing up, making little upgrades as I go along. But before I explore anymore, I'm running very low on food, and I need to find a solution quick. Turns out, if I put the merchant in the snow biome, he sells marshmallows, which you can combine with wood and cook at a campfire for roasted marshmallows. So now with the food crisis sorted, I actually come across a blizzard in a bottle and some moonlord legs. Moonlord legs in this seed give you a ton of movement and a bit of defense as well, so they're really nice. And then quickly after that, I found some flurry boots, which sorts our Hermes boot situation. A blood moon rises, which is not great at this stage since I have a copper short sword, but on the good news, I'm able to make a legendary platinum pickaxe. I make a weird tunnel system to avoid all the blood moon enemies that goes straight up into my heaven evader, and I get to work mining some demonite. Now, unfortunately, I really wasn't finding much crimtane, so we don't really have an option except the demonite sword, the Light's Bane. And we can finally do some decent damage. The new rework for the Light's Bane actually is pretty cool, and I actually end up getting a full 400 health, and I make my first grappling hook. Apart from dying, the next thing that was on my list was to head to the underground jungle. An obsidian skull is helping a lot with the traversing, but while that was trivialized, I can't really say the same thing for the jungle enemies. I decided I'd try and fight the Brain of Cthulhu. Now, obviously, I won't be able to beat this, but all I wanted was a little bit of tissue samples. But unfortunately, I didn't even get close to killing one of the creepers. So we'll revisit that, but for the time being, we're heading back to the jungle. Now, this just consisted of me throwing myself at it a lot. There was so many hive blocks, and it was just really hard to traverse. And to top it all off, a goblin army arrived, so I whacked them with my Light's Bane until they were finally defeated. This took forever. And I was finally able to gather all the jungle materials to slap together the Blade of Grass. Real quick, can we talk about how smart the name the Blade of Grass is? Like, a blade of grass is a single piece of grass, and it's a sword. The Blade of Grass. Anyway, the Blade of Grass is quite a good upgrade in the arsenal, and it just so happens that once I obtain it, I feel an evil presence watching over me. So I think I could pretty easily beat the Eye of Cthulhu even without an arena. I haven't flattened out anything, but it shouldn't be too bad, right? The Blade of Grass is quite a good projectile to stay at a distance. I'm basically just running to the east and then running to the west, keeping my distance from the dashes. Eventually, it gets the second phase, which honestly isn't too bad. Sometimes he'll hit me, but I can usually bait him with the Feather Fall potion and then drop quickly to make sure that he doesn't hit me. And if I get hit here and there, it's fine. It only does like 30 odd damage to me. And very easily, the Eye of Cthulhu has been taken out, even with all his servants trying to murder me. I then went and finally found the Goblin Tinkerer, which gave me some Spectre Boots. I then cleared out an arena for the Brain of Cthulhu, and I spawned him in. But there were a couple spiders in the way, so I wasn't able to get out in time, which kind of messed me up. But that's not the main thing that messed me up. The main thing that messed me up was he teleported onto me, and I died instantly. That wasn't so great, but I'm going to spawn him in again. Hopefully, we can kill a couple creepers to get enough tissue sample. This time around, I don't actually kill any of them, but my poison from the Blade of Grass does. But only a couple, and it's not enough to make a pickaxe. I try it once again, This time, I'm trying not to move too much so I don't get caught in the brain's teleportation. And I actually managed to kill a few creepers, and I actually have enough tissue samples to make the Deathbringer pickaxe. But I realized that because I haven't found much crimtane, I actually can't make it. So now I have to search far and wide in my world just for a little bit of crimtane. And after a long search, I finally find enough crimtane to make the Deathbringer pickaxe. I then crafted an obsidian skin potion and dived right into the lava. Got some obsidian, finally retired the Moonlord legs with a full set of molten armor, and I made the volcano, another ingredient of the Night's Edge. This weapon has short range but is incredibly powerful. I then found a magic conch in the underground desert, and I looked for the shimmer, which I ended up finding on the right side of the map in the midst of a massive underground crimson biome. With the shimmer, I can do some permanent upgrades and some shimmer forging. I also found the dungeon in some living tree on the left side of the world. Now, this dungeon actually did give me a wooden chest, which had a golden key inside of it. But unfortunately, it didn't give me a golden chest. That was the crimson chest, but I couldn't go deep enough to find a golden chest. The dungeon guardian would just end up killing me. And while I was looking for the dungeon, in one of the living trees, there was actually an enchanted sword shrine with an enchanted sword in it, which is a component of the Zenith. Will I use it? No, but it's great to have it just for the peace of mind of not having to fish for it. And with the golden key that I got from the dungeon, I headed up to a sky island, opened the first chest I saw, and funnily enough, I got the Star Fury. I'm not going to use it. Now I'm going to try and fight the brain again. It's going quite a bit better with my upgraded gear. I end up wiping out all of the creepers. It flips me upside down, and unfortunately, it converged onto me and hit me 3 times back to back to back, and I died. I tried again, and once again died in second phase, but it was actually the poison that I got from a hornet shooting me with a stinger. This try is going decent. I'm actually on full health at second phase, and I'm keeping the brain at bay with my blade of grass. It's doing quite a good job. Ideally, I'd want to use the volcano as it does much more damage, but the blade of grass actually keeps it back pretty easily. Now, I learned that if the copies are in a wall, it actually can't be a clone. So that means most of the time, only the 2 that are above me are the real brain. So that made it much easier. Sometimes that wasn't the case because it wasn't in a block, but it made the fight quite a bit more possible. And with that, the brain is finally down. Now, that didn't give me anything except for the Brain of Confusion accessory, but that's a fantastic accessory, so I'll take it. And I mean, I got the Brain of Confusion, so I have to get the worm scarf now, right? I spawned in the eater, and it wasn't going too bad, but the arena was quite small, which really limited my movement, so I did kind of get rolled. Then I was opening it up a bit more with some sticky bombs, and I actually accidentally spawned in the worm by destroying another shadow orb. So we'll wing it. I'm mainly using the blade of grass here, mostly for 2 things: consistent damage from the projectiles and to destroy the spit. And this boss doesn't have a time frame, so I'm not that worried. But if I really want to do some big damage, I go in with the volcano and slap his segments. And I mean, that just leaves him crippled. I do get relatively low at some point, but it's not too bad. And Eater of Worlds, as per usual, pretty easy boss. Now, the next boss on my sights is the Queen Bee. Now, my main strategy here is just to hit her with the blade of grass, but when she's standing still, spawning in her bees, that's when I go in with the volcano and do big damage. She's pretty low, and I'm pretty healthy, but suddenly she starts hitting me with some hooks, knocking my equilibrium off, and she dashes into me 3 times in a row, and now I can't even remember my mother's name. But I fight her again. It's going just as smooth, whacking her with the volcano. Now, should I have learnt from being greedy by getting up in her face, as she could dash at any second? Maybe, but greed pays off every time. I whack her with the volcano. She takes a ton of damage, and she just sits there. She doesn't know what to do. Now, her equilibrium is destroyed, and now the queen of all bees is the queen no longer. I'm the queen. She didn't drop what I wanted, so I fought her again, and then she dropped the beekeeper, which is another full component of the Zenith. Unfortunately, it's not that good, and I didn't really use it at all. At least to me, the volcano just feels so much better in my hand. And this is a really difficult part of this playthrough. I have to make an arena for Skeletron. And what I figured I'd do is lead Skeletron to my Eater of Worlds arena. So I had a bed set up and everything, but when I spawned him in and magic mirrored to the bed, he despawned. I then moved it closer, and this time it actually worked, but I died. I tried it again, getting hit a lot along the way, but I managed to make it out of there alive. But now is the actual hard part, fighting Skeletron. Now, first phase isn't too bad. I just have to destroy the hands. I'm getting hit every now and then, and the damage is pretty awful, to be honest. It's not easy to get in close to the hands, so I'm mainly using the blade of grass here for the projectiles. But eventually, I do destroy both the hands, but now the dark casters are spawning, and because my arena is so small, there are projectiles everywhere. There's nowhere to really run, and it's really limiting my movement, as I can't move here or here because there's a water bolt. So dark caster kills me, and that's the end of it. So I knew what I had to do. I just didn't know if I had the strength to do it. But I bit down and got to work, bombing the living heckers out of this arena, opening it up so much horizontally. horizontally, spending a good 50 minutes making a ton of space, and I'm finally ready to fight Skeletron again. I spawn him in, instantly teleport to the bed, taking no damage. I get whacked by the hand on my way out, but I dodge it, and I dodge again to a head hit, and I just swing my blade of grass around, slowly whittling down the hands. But my laziness really shows here, as I was not going to fill this arena with backgrounds to stop enemy spawns, but that meant the enemies were gonna spawn all over the place, including a Mimic and Tim. And I ended up getting hit by a Granite Elemental, and that attempt is null and void. But let's try it again. Hopefully this time we get luckier with the enemy spawns. I decide this time around I'm just gonna use the Volcano to destroy the hands, and it goes much better. I actually tear them apart very quickly. And we're now in second phase with both the hands destroyed, and really the main strategy here is to just swing my blade of grass around, trying to kill the Dark Casters and maybe hit Skeletron. But the big damage source on Skeletron is when he's spinning, I'm hitting him on my back swing of the Volcano, with each swing doing massive damage to him. But there's something I haven't told you. I realized something early into the fight. I didn't bring any healing potions, so I've actually only been regenerating this whole fight. No healing potions has made this fight much harder. No burst of heals has made it really tough. We're pretty low for most of this fight due to this, but I'm making sure to utilize my honey bucket in my hotbar to increase my regen by a lot. And like suddenly I go from 80 health up to 200 health. And without any healing potions, Skeletron has fallen to me. So naturally I headed straight down into the dungeon, farming some bones and opening up golden chests, not finding the weapon that I'm looking for. But after a long search, I finally find the Muramasa. With the Muramasa obtained, at long last, I'm able to combine the Light's Bane, Blade of Grass, Volcano, and the Muramasa to make the Knight's Edge, our final pre-hard mode Zenith component. I then found a desert pyramid on the surface, which obtained a sandstorm in a bottle. I then headed to the skies with extra golden keys that I obtained from the dungeon, and opened up a bunch of Sky Island chests in search of shiny red balloons. I only ended up finding one, so I then went fishing in a sky lake for some sky crates, and I ended up getting back-to-back shiny red balloons, meaning that I can now make the bundle of horseshoe balloons. So with the vertical movement sorted, I now need to find horizontal movement, and I actually opted to golfing. Yeah, golfing. Did you forget that that was a mechanic of Terraria? Because it is, and it's actually helpful in this scenario, because after a long golfing session and lots of holes in ones, I could buy the golf cart keys from the golfer, and this mount combined with the bundle of balloons has incredible mobility. And now it's time to build the funnel. Just kidding, this time I am not building a funnel. After a couple people said that I shouldn't do it anymore, I've officially retired the funnel strategy. This is because I realized I don't know if I actually need it. Over the playthrough, I've obtained 2 Fire Imp statues, which allows me to farm a bunch of Fire Imp banners, which makes the Fire Imps very easy to deal with, especially with a Knight's Edge. So I then went and built a pretty big bridge, spaced it out with Fire Imp banners and some campfires and heart lanterns, and I spawned in the Wall of Flesh. Let's give this a try. I'm not sure if I'll do it without the funnel, but there's only one way to find out. Now, right off the bat, I'm actually dodging the Fire Imp's fireballs pretty successfully with the movement of this golf cart. I'm just making sure I'm jumping up and down to dodge them and the lasers of the wall. And the Knight's Edge is tearing through the Wall of Flesh. I'm able to hit 2 segments at once some of the times, which helps a lot in the DPS department. The wall is now under half health, and I'm losing a bit of health here, but honestly, we're looking fine. The wall starts speeding up here, and I actually bump into a lone ash block, which messes me up. But luckily, I dodge, and I just keep swinging my Knight's Edge at the Wall of Flesh. It's speeding up a ton, but the golf cart outspeeds it. And ladies and gentlemen, we have entered hard mode without a funnel this time around. It's the end of an era, ladies and gentlemen. You can cry about it, I won't blame you. I then placed down my Wall of Flesh relic and realized I'm missing the Skeletron relic. I don't know where it went. I head back to the arena, which first of all is really tough because of these new hard mode enemies, but no Skeletron relic. Now, turns out that the underground hallowed actually ended up upon my shimmer, which means that I can actually build some houses and create a pylon network at the shimmer. And then for some reason, I decided that the most important thing that I do right off the bat in hard mode is farm Chaos Elementals for the Rod of Discord. Now, this isn't insane because the odds of the Rod of Discord dropping are increased exponentially, but after a while, I decide, okay, fine, I'll go smash some altars, giving me all of the hard mode ores, and I go mining around for some palladium, and then some mithril, and finally adamantite and titanium, and then the Medusa spawned randomly, which obviously went perfectly fine, and I crafted a full set of adamantite armor. Now back to the Rod of Discord grind. I spent a while here. I actually ended up getting a Mimic banner, it took so long. Overall, it was like 2 hours, but finally a Chaos Elemental dropped the Rod of Discord. I then managed to get a Moon Charm from a werewolf, and then dynamited a large area near my spawn, and placed a bunch of platforms. And with not much much left to use, I consumed the Okram's Razor and spawned in Medusa. Now, this fight is obviously tough. And yes, I have to do it with the Knight's Edge. There is no weapon that I can use that is a Zenith component at this stage that is better than the Knight's Edge. Now, luckily for me, the Knight's Edge is quite a good weapon and is still relatively viable in early hard mode, even though it's a pre-hard mode weapon. Naturally, my first target is the Destroyer, the easiest of them all to kill early, but there's just so much going on, so many lasers, and I get pants pretty quickly. So I decided I was going to try to use some teleporters so that I don't have to run into Skeletron and the twins to do damage to the Destroyer all the time. But then the pirates came to ruin all of my plans. I then boxed myself, hammered some blocks, and swung my Knight's Edge, only dying to the captain's ghost, and the pirates were promptly dealt with. Now, every time I want to challenge the Medusa, I have to make the Okram's Razor, which is all the mech summons combined in one, which is quite annoying to craft. There's not too much to say. I'm just making sure that I'm keeping my distance from the main Medusa part, and since the Destroyer is so long, there is a good few seconds where I can swing my Knight's Edge at him without the twins and Prime in my face for just a brief moment. Now, this is long and grueling, but for some reason, while I'm teleporting around, I actually end up despawning Skeletron Prime, which I hadn't noticed, which meant that the Destroyer was loose, and because of which, he flung himself at me, caught me completely off guard, and one-tapped me. And then Medusa spawned naturally, and it wasn't going too bad, except I somehow got hit by the Destroyer's head for 538 damage without it even detached. I didn't even know that was possible, but there's really nothing for me to do except throw myself at this. So I try again. With the Knight's Edge, it does pierce, so I am able to hit the Destroyer if it's coiled up, but honestly, it doesn't do stupid damage. So I'm in it for the long haul. I just need to keep whacking my Knight's Edge at the Destroyer, chipping down his health, using my Rod of Discord if I'm in a sticky situation, using the teleporters to keep the other mechs away. The Destroyer is super tanky, and my 4-minute buffs have already run out, but finally, we have defeated the Destroyer, which opens up quite a bit for us. But I'm still gonna try and attempt this fight, even with a new weapon available. I've sunk this much time into it, I might as well try. And this takes so long. I'm just slowly whittling down Skeletron Prime's limbs. Ideally, I don't want to get Spasmatism to second phase because I know that'll kill me. And after a long, grueling process, Retinazer is now in second phase, and with my movements of going up and to the left and swinging my Knight's Edge at him, Retinazer falls to me, but unluckily for me, that does nothing for me unless I kill Spasmatism, and Spasmatism is definitely the hardest part of this entire fight. I want to kill Skeletron Prime first before I single out Spasmatism, but Spasmatism is so low at this point that I do eventually accidentally get Spasmatism to second phase, meaning he is now spewing flames, and Skeletron Prime is dragging him along, meaning I can't even outrun him some of the time. And after a long fight and getting so close to beating him, this was literally a 13-minute fight, I'm finally stopped by Skeletron Prime. But it's not all bad news, because now I can craft the Excalibur. The Excalibur turns into the true Excalibur, which then turns into the Terrorblade and then the Zenith. So now with an actual hard mode weapon, I challenge the Medusa again with my legendary Excalibur. This time around, compared to last time, I am absolutely mincing the Destroyer. This weapon makes such a difference, it's actually insane. And after only a couple minutes this time, the Destroyer has been defeated once again, so now it's just the eyeballs and Prime. Now this time around, I'm gonna be more careful in not hitting Spasmatism. If Spasmatism is near me, I'm not gonna swing. I want to hit Skeletron Prime's limbs, Skeletron Prime himself, and Retinazer, which means that if I only swing when I'm moving up and to the left, unless Spasmatism is dashing at me, I will hit everything excluding Spasmatism. Retinazer is now in second phase, and pretty quickly is defeated. Now I want to target Skeletron Prime, which I can usually do on a downwards movement. And finally, after about 4 minutes, Prime is dead, and now it's just Spasmatism. I bring him down to second phase, and this is dangerous. Fighting Spasmatism with only a sword without any projectiles is always difficult, and it feels like he spews forever, but whenever he's dashing at me, that's when I can get some hits in, and it's more of the same, back and forth. He dashes into me and falls to me, and we have defeated Medusa. Now with the 3 Mechateers defeated, I can make a mechanical glove, which turns into a fire gauntlet, a great melee accessory, and with the Knight's Edge and the souls from the mechs, I'm able to make the true Knight's Edge, which is a pretty good projectile sword. And with the pickaxe axe, I spelunk straight into the underground jungle, finding a moth giving me butterfly dust, and farming a bunch of chlorophyte. Just as a fun little statistic, I've died 92 times at this point. It's been a little rough. And with some of the chlorophyte that I found along the way, I made the true Excalibur, which is a true melee sword, but it's really good if you can get in close. And after a lot of digging in the jungle, I finally maxed max out my health at 500. And now it's time to clear out an arena for Plantera. I am hoping that I find some turtle shells while I'm doing this. I am using hallowed armor right now, which is really nice. The dodge is fantastic, but I will want turtle shells for later on. I'm just not really getting them right now. And I spawn her in. First phase is a walk in the park. I'm switching between the True Knight's Edge and the True Excalibur to see which one actually does more damage. I was finding that the True Knight's Edge, if I was hitting her consistently with the projectile and the sword, it's doing fantastic damage. First phase is a breeze. We get through it very quickly, but she then drops into second phase, so I drop down into the Osagoth tunnel. With my slow fall with the wings, I'm able to just slowly descend and shoot my True Knight's Edge up at her. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. Once I get to the bottom of the Osagoth tunnel, I use the teleporter to get above her. I then head up, which going up is definitely harder to maintain. So once I'm at the top, I teleport below her, and she's getting super low. I'm actually almost at the end of the Osagoth tunnel, so I Rod of Discord above her just to finish her off. And now screams echo from the dungeon. Plantera does drop a Zenith component, but unfortunately she didn't drop it this time around, so we'll have to fight her again and again and again and again. Okay, this loot pool is kind of just as bad as the golems. Wanting one specific thing is really tough, but alas, Plantera finally dropped me the Seedler. I've actually never used the Seedler, as I mean there's usually other better options, or Plantera just doesn't drop it and I never really fight Plantera multiple times, but it's honestly pretty good. It's outclassed very quickly by a weapon I'm about to get, but its explosion and projectiles are super helpful for clearing out a bunch of enemies. I then headed straight to the golem's house, raided his treasure trove, and then spawned in the solar eclipse, or I guess the horrors, as there's no sun on this seed. The Seedler was taking care of business pretty well, and just who I was looking for, Mothron decided to show up. First one I kill drops the Eye of Cthulhu yo-yo, not what I was looking for, but then the second one drops the Broken Hero Sword. Absolutely perfect. I then sundial the solar eclipse away, and finally, with the True Excalibur and True Knight's Edge, I craft another full component of the Zenith, a part of a long crafting tree within the Zenith, the famous Terra Blade. Obviously, this was reworked in 1.4.4, and it is an absolutely beautiful weapon. Some people would say it's overrated, but honestly, with the way I'm about to build it, it's definitely not. I then wanted to make another mechanical glove, but I was lacking souls, so I fought Mechdusa again. The Terra Blade was putting in massive work against it. The Destroyer was quickly destroyed, then Retinazer, then Spasmatism, and then finally Skeletron Prime. I then went to the post-Plantera dungeon, quickly got a Bone Feather for improved wings, and I then sat in a box and farmed a bunch of dungeon enemies, hoping for Master Ninja Gear and a Paladin's Shield, which a Black Belt drops really quickly, and then a Paladin's Shield, and then a Tabby. So I actually got really lucky there. It didn't take that long, and I can finally dash in the playthrough. I then grab a ton of Illuminant paint and teleport straight into the Golem's room, and then spend the next 15 minutes painting this room to spawn in the Golem. Now, the Terra Blade is doing huge work against him. I am still using my hallowed armor because I still haven't gotten turtle shells. The Terra Blade annihilates his hands as it pierces straight through all three segments of the Golem, and very quickly the head detaches from his torso. I keep swinging the Terra Blade around, pretty easily doing around 2,000 damage per second, and just like the wind, Golem is gone in an instant. He also revealed to me his messy cables. I mean, bro, seriously, do some cable management. This is horrendous. And then I fight the Golem again and again and again. At least it's pretty easy this time around. As per usual, I was just looking for one thing, and that is the Sunstone. And after 9 successful attempts, the Sunstone falls into my void bag. So now I want to fight the horrors to get the Moonstone and the Neptune's Shell, which aren't too hard to get. And now I make the fantastic accessory of the Celestial Shell. I then headed back into the underground jungle, trying to get tortoise shells, and I Rod of Discord straight into a Martian probe. I could have tried to kill it, but I actually let it happen because there is something I want from the Martian invasion. But for some reason, in this entire Martian event, I'd wipe out so many aliens, but not a single saucer spawn. After many jungle mimics and tortoise kills, I finally acquired 2 more turtle shells to create a full set of turtle armor, and then craft that into beetle armor. Now, normally I would go beetle shell as my chest plate for maximum survivability, but with the Terra Blade, I actually wanted to go with the beetle scale mail because of the increased damage and melee speed. With all the accumulated gear that I have, the beetle armor, the celestial shell, the mechanical glove, the fire gauntlet, and a couple accessories reforged to violent, and with exquisitely stuffed and tipsy, my Terra Blade swings like this. It's actually insane. It swings so fast, it does so much damage. I put it to the test against the Martian Saucer, which I absolutely shredded. It was honestly no problem at all. It dropped the car keys. Another one spawned. I absolutely melt all 4 of its weapons. It doesn't do as much damage against a single target, but still destroys it, and it drops a Xenostar. Then I get a Xenopopper, and then another Xenopopper, then an Electrosphere launcher, and And finally, the influx waver is obtained. Another component of the Zenith and one of our final weapons. People say that it's better against single targets than the Terra Blade, but I found that to be not quite true, and I didn't really use the influx waver, to be honest. The Terra Blade just kind of cleared. And with that, there's only one pre-Moonlord component to the Zenith left, so I spawn in the Pumpkin Moon, clear the waves with my insanely fast Terra Blade. A Pumpkin then spawns. I tried using the influx waver against it a bit, and sometimes it did good damage, but the Terra Blade just seemed way more consistent. The first one drops the Dark Harvest, second one the Bat Scepter, and the third one drops the final pre-Moonlord component, the Horseman's Blade. Honestly, in progression, you probably get this before the influx waver. It's not that good. It's true melee, so it's really hard to hit enemies with it, and the damage just really isn't that worth it to get in that close when you have a Terra Blade beaming everything. And the pirates spawn in again, and this time I can actually kill some Flying Dutchmen. The Terra Blade just absolutely shreds those cannons. I managed to get a Witch's Broom as well, so that means when I'm on this, I can swap out any of my movement accessories for damage and survivability. And speaking of survivability, I headed into the underground ice biome, looking for ice tortoises. It took so long to farm these guys. They never drop the item you want when you want it. And at long last, I get the frozen turtle shell, which I combined with the Paladin's shield to make the frozen shield. That took like an hour and a half. And now to fight the Empress of Light. I'm not doing it daytime this time around. I'm just gonna do it down here, nighttime Empress, and I'm just swinging my Terra Blade at her. Nothing too crazy. Witch's Broom, infinite flight, gives me good maneuverability. The only problem here is the limited space. I don't have a ton of vertical space, and my horizontal space is kind of limited as well. But luckily, the damage is relatively good. I know this fight very well. It's not too hard. The Terra Blade has insane speed, so the damage is not quite at a summoner level, but it's pretty good. It's respectable. With the Empress of Light dead, I now have the Soaring Insignia. I decided to fight it a few more times, hopefully to get the Empress wings, but I didn't end up getting it, so I headed to the Glowing Mushroom biome and got some truffle worms. Now, this fight is difficult, I found out last time. The low gravity on the beach makes it not easy at all, but the Terra Blade is doing very good damage, destroying the bubbles instantly. I mean, I'm swinging at ludicrous speeds. It's insane. Once you get the scale mail beetles around you, it increases your damage and your melee speed, so it just sends them out like it's nothing. I'm actually doing pretty well here. I'm using the horizontal space quite a bit, and I'm also using the Witch's Broom as it's not affected by low gravity, so I'm able to correct myself when I'm just floating up into the atmosphere. Duke gets the third phase. I get very close to the top of the world, which obviously insta-kills me, so I had the Witch's Broom to adjust. I almost got hit, but I didn't, and Duke Fishron has been defeated. But unfortunately, no wings, so I fight him a couple more times, but I end up dying, and I forget about it. So now, I'm gonna fight the Old One's army. I would love some Betsy wings. The Terra Blade is mostly shredding through this, but once it gets to wave 6, it's getting way too difficult. I get overrun by ogres and all the enemies, and I honestly just can't keep up. There's no way I could beat Betsy in time, especially without any sentries. So I shifted my attention back on the Empress. This fight is pretty easy. I can do it pretty consistently, eventually, finally getting the Empress wings. So now I have my endgame wings, headed over to the dungeon and slaughtered the lunatic cultist, the little gooners, and got to work on the lunatic cultist himself. I opted to using the Witch's Broom here, as you don't need too much movement in the lunatic cultist fight, and going for max survivability and damage seemed like the best idea. And the fight's going very smoothly. I hit the right lunatic twice in a row. I do have to watch out for the ancient lights though, because they hurt a lot, although my survivability is fantastic, so I'm not sure how much it would do, but better safe than sorry. And with no problems at all, lunatic cultist defeated. And now celestial creatures are invading. I then found my plushie pet in the first shadow chest I opened, so that's pretty epic. I could have got that ages ago, but the first pillar I opted to destroy was the vortex pillar, mostly because it's super easy to cheese. I just boxed myself, left one block open, swung my Terra Blade until it was defeated. Now this was a really annoying one to get through. I had to Rod of Discord my way through the biggest maze ever, all to get to the solar pillar, which is arguably the hardest pillar, especially with Crawltipedes keeping me on the ground, and then Scrollers absolutely annihilating me. 600! So I died many times and had to go back, which was a very grueling process, but I finally defeated the solar pillar. Okay, now the nebula pillar. This one was just as bad. It was honestly horrible. I just kept going back to it and then dying, but I had a genius idea. If I have to keep going back to these places, why don't I just place a bed so I can respawn at the pillar? And that was working pretty well. If I died, I didn't have to go far to get back to the pillar. The nebula pillar was absolutely insane. I hate these damn spheres that are on you, and the damn teleporting guys. I just hate it. I hate it so much. But once that was defeated, I headed over to the Stardust, which is honestly at its worst in this seed. The damn Milky Way weavers are so annoying because they spawn in the walls, and I can't hit them through walls, so they just jump me, and I have no chance. fragments. But once the pillar was destroyed, unfortunately, I died and didn't get any of the fragments. So I won't be able to make super healing potions, but let's see if we can do it anyway. Can we beat the Moon Lord on Get Fixed Boy, Zenith Components only? Now, the Terrorblade is going off here. Insane fire rate. I don't even want to switch to the Influx Waver. Once the top eye is open, obviously he shoots his Death Laser, which I dodge pretty easily. But on this seed, there are Moon Boulders, which throws a whole separate spanner in the works at me. But I then get hit for 260 damage by a boulder that bounced off the ground below me. I do heal up, but things aren't looking too great. Now, obviously, I can't go too high here, or if I go into space, I'll instantly die and lose the fight just like that. So I can't go too high, but also, if I'm too low, the boulders will bounce onto me. The laser then comes out again. The boulders get flung out. I manage to dodge them, and I'm pretty high up so they don't bounce into me. The eye comes out again. I do some good damage. It's now at around half health. The boulders get flung out, but I manage to dodge them. The Rod of Discord helps a lot in maintaining that distance, but every death laser feels like a gamble. One of these moon boulders could collide with me any of these times, and it's going to do massive damage. Now, obviously, I could do a cheese where I teleport home, nurse heal, and the moon boulders fall into some box, and you don't even have to worry about them. But as some of you would know about me, I don't like cheesing the Moon Lord fight. These days, I never nurse heal, so why would I cheese it any other way? I'm gonna fight it head on, and I'm gonna figure out these boulders, and I'm gonna triumph over it. The hand eyes are pretty low at this point. I end up breaking the left hand eye, and then I stupidly become an astronaut because I flew too high like an idiot. I was a bit too focused on the Moon Lord himself and instantly died. Honestly, not a bad attempt. This time around, I made super healing potions, and we try it once again. It's going pretty well. I'm dodging the moon boulders pretty successfully. A fallen star actually almost hits me. That would insta-kill me. It didn't even really occur to me in this fight, but yeah, luckily it didn't hit me. The right hand eye is now out of the socket, which means there is a true eye of Cthulhu on the field. I keep accidentally Rod of Discording twice in a row, which does some decent damage to me, so I need to really try not to do that again. And now the left hand eye is out of the socket as well, which means it's just the top eye remaining. And with that last death ray, moon boulders aren't even sent out in time, and the top eye is out of the socket. So it's easy from here. Just keep my distance. If I keep moving horizontally, the True Eye of Cthulhu's can most of the time not even hit me, as long as I have quick reaction speeds for certain projectiles. But even if I get hit, I mean, my survivability is great. The Terrorblade is chipping down at the Moon Lord's heart. I'm completely fine here. I try the Influx Waver a bit. It's doing okay damage. It's respectable, I guess. Terrorblade's better though. And at long last, the Moon Lord has been defeated on Get Fixed Boi Zenith Components only. But this playthrough doesn't end here. Crafting the Zenith is when the playthrough ends. And unfortunately, from the Moon Lord bag, I did not get either of the Zenith components, and I don't have enough Luminite or solar fragments to craft solar armor. So the only benefit I have against the Moon Lord now is the Celestial Starboard, which obviously is quite helpful. Now that I have a hover, I can switch out my Master Ninja gear for another accessory, and the movement is utterly insane. Quick vertical movement and hovering. What else could you really want? And the second Moon Lord fight is going perfectly fine. My movement is insane. I can just completely outpace the boulders. But then I stupidly flew too close to the sun. Lack of sun. So I fought him again, making sure I'm not going too high this time. And I was also getting up close to the Moon Lord's top eye. This meant that it was getting hit by the sword and the projectile, which was doing massive damage. I was getting kind of arrogant, but my arrogance went a long way, and the core was defeated. But this time it dropped the Celebration Mark II and the last prism. So this is my final sigil before I have to fight the Lunatic Cultist again, and I died again. So I fought the Lunatic Cultist, slogged through the entire Lunar Pillar event, found a goldfish, and slapped it on my head. I then crafted the solar armor, giving me a big buff in my arsenal, challenged the Moon Lord once again, but quickly departed my world. But this time around, I actually defeat the Moon Lord once again, and I got one of the components from the Moon Lord, the Meowmere. Now, I love the Meowmere. It's a great weapon. It does good damage. I put it to test against the Moon Lord again without reforging it, and if I got up close and hit it with the projectile, the damage was absolutely insane. It actually trivialized this boss way more than the Terrorblade was. The great thing is, if you get up close, you do tons of damage, and it has a great projectile so you can use it from a range very easily. But the next Moon Lord bag didn't give me the final weapon, so I reforged the Mew Mew to legendary, attempted it again, and I got the Mew Mew again. So I have to fight the cultist again, and then the pillars. It's easier now with the Mew Mew, but still very tedious and annoying. But hopefully this is the last time. For some reason, the Nebula Pillar was in the Lizard Temple. I got to work fighting the Moon Lord once again. Nothing. Fought it again. Died. I then had the sudden realization that I've had the Rod of Discord Lord this whole time, and I've beat the Moon Lord. So I can shimmer it into the Rod of Harmony. So that would have been nice to remember earlier on, but it's nice to have now. So now what I do when I got too high up is just teleport a bunch of times to get lower. And the Moon Lord has been defeated for the final time. I open up my treasure bag and I get the Star Wrath, the final component to the Zenith. I gathered together all the weapons that I'd collected along my playthrough, starting from the Copper Short Sword to the Star Fury, to the Enchanted Sword, to the Beekeeper, to the Seedler, to the Terror Blade, which has a whole tree of its own, the Influx Waver, the Horseman's Blade, the Meowmere, and the Star Wrath. Unfortunately, I didn't really get to use the Star Wrath. It's a great weapon, but it doesn't compare to the weapon I'm about to make. The whole reason we're here, the ultimate Terraria melee weapon, nay, the ultimate Terraria weapon, the Zenith. I went and reforged it to Legendary. I have over 60 platinum from the amount of mimics I've killed, so needless to say, I had enough money for it. I then created the best damage build that I could, summoned in the Moon Lord for the final time to see how we'd do, and the Zenith gets the top eye to half health, basically before the fight's even begun. I then destroy the right eye, the left eye, and soon after that, the top eye, and then the core is just absolutely destroyed. And I mean, I just made the Moon Lord look like the King Slime. I then fought the Frost Moon with my new Zenith, absolutely tearing through this whole thing, getting to the final wave, and getting 31,000 score. And then I finally actually took down the Old One's army, destroying the Dark Mages and the Ogres, and absolutely tearing apart Betsy. I fought the hardest boss in the game, Deerclops, a couple times, triumphed over that, and I have one relic missing from way back. So as a final challenge, I equipped a Clothier Voodoo Doll, killed the Clothier, and Skeletron was dead before I could even stop swinging the Zenith. And that completes my little relic stand. Ignore that there's none of the slime bosses. I definitely didn't forget about them or anything. And yeah, that concludes the Zenith Seed or Get Fixed Boy with only Zenith components, finishing it off with the Zenith. I hope you guys enjoyed. Shout out to all the YouTubers that did this challenge before me. This was obviously a really tough challenge. Get Fixed Boy is insanely difficult, but surprisingly, I honestly had quite a bit of fun. But make sure to subscribe for my agony. If you want more Get Fixed Boy challenges, give this video a like so I know. Shout out to my members. They'll be in the outro card. If you want to support me by sending a couple bucks my way, literally it's $2 USD. I'd really appreciate it. It supports the channel. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.